Welcome to the Empowered Dancers podcast, where we talk openly about all things empowerment in the salsa, bachata and kizomba scene. Join me as I talk about the highs and lows of Latin dancing, as well as interviewing some incredible people on their stories, experiences and points of view, both in the dance scene and beyond. Go to empowereddancers.com/5 ways for 5 tips to boost your confidence on the social dance floor. I'm Bobby Miles, that's Bobby with an IE and Miles as in distance. We talk a lot about empowerment for dancers, but what about empowerment for teachers as well? There's a lot that teachers can learn from each other, that promoters can gain from hearing each other's experiences. So Stellan is joining us today, and Stellan has been teaching for over 17 years now and dancing for 23 on top of that. No, not on top of that. Stellan has been dancing for 23 years and has been teaching for 17 of those 23. He's a salsa teacher and dabbles in bachata as well. Stellan's also a qualified nurse and the father of 2 lovely daughters. Welcome, Stellan, and thanks for joining us.
Hi there, how are you, Bobby?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, keeping it all going, spinning
Keeping
the
it going?
plates, as they say.
Yes, yeah. Well, before we get into the juicy bits, could you start us off by telling us how did you get into dancing? What brought you to salsa?
I've always loved to dance. So from my student days, dancing in the, 80s kind of themed nights and such. I love my 80s music. Yeah, always loved to dance. And then I traveled around the world. And in Mexico, I saw some dancing and I was with a friend. And yeah, she said that they were dancing salsa. And I was like, oh, wow. And there was a song being played, La Vida es Carnaval, Celia Cruz. And yeah, I was like, I love the song. And I just thought, right, when I get back to Bristol, I'm going to start to dance and learn salsa. And then, yeah, I think I was working at the hospital back then. And yeah, some Spanish nurses took me along to my first salsa class back then. And yeah, that was on a Wednesday. And I basically didn't stop from there.
So
And
it got you and it kept growing.
yeah.
Fantastic.
It was just, yeah, I loved the music, I loved the dance, and yeah, I just wanted to, yeah, do as much of it as I could.
Brilliant. That's the way to be. And what started you on to, not what started you, what made you think, I want to start my own night?
Um, I mean, back in the day, this is, yeah, a while ago. So, um, there wasn't a lot of technique, if any, being taught in Bristol in particular. We had guest teachers come down and they would do bits of technique with us, but there wasn't anything consistent and there wasn't anything that was at improver intermediate level. So you had these guest teachers and you had different guest teachers often in the classes that I used to go on a Wednesday. They would come down each week, but they didn't know what the previous one had taught. So
Yeah.
it was always quite a long routine. When the Wednesday nights finished with the other promoter in Bristol, I started on the Wednesdays and then the Friday parties, and then even a Sunday I was teaching as well in the Aztec West Hotel. It was more that it was just that technique. I just felt like I wanted to give people in their first year what I hadn't got in maybe 4 or 5 years. It
Mhm.
took me a long time to get to where people are getting today in their first year. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful driving factor when your why is to fill the gaps that you didn't have when you started out and to see people thrive with those gaps plugged, which is really cool. So one thing, Stellan, that has stood out to me when I first started, when I was quite early on in my dancing, was that when there are repeated instances of sexual abuse, of harassment, of rough and inappropriate leading predominantly. Sorry, leaders, but it is. Um, you were a name that came down hard on things. And when I encountered my first big problem that I didn't know what to deal with, um, I came and spoke to you about it. And you were able to give me some good advice, but you were also able to make me feel it's okay. We can make this space safe. We can make Bristol a safe space. Here's who you perhaps might want to go and talk to and inform. are you okay to do that? And that was pretty huge for me. So thank you first off for that. Um, but I would really like it if you wouldn't mind talking us through an instance perhaps where there has been a case of where, in this case, it's leaders because it predominantly is leaders, not exclusively, but the predominant issue we have is with male leaders, where there have been situations of repeated harassment, inappropriate behavior, and how you dealt with it.
Okay, so one of the cases that I was thinking about happened before lockdown, and it was somebody, a dancer that had come from outside of the Bristol scene, the Bristol Bath scene. I hadn't seen him before, and he was going to different venues, and this is what I heard afterwards, after the fact, was that he was being rough, verbally abusive, not treating followers very nice.
No.
And so in my nights and such, I mean, I'm always keeping my eye on the guys and making sure that everything is flowing nicely. But yeah, I'd noticed this guy is a new person, and new people I will definitely keep an eye on more than my regular crowd. And I saw something on the dance floor, but I couldn't see exactly what had happened. Um, but it was one of my teachers, Gemma, that came and spoke to me about him, and said that she'd been basically treated roughly and verbally abused. Like he was rough with her and had insulted her, verbally abused her. And so basically, I knew Gemma, but I think anybody that would tell me that, I would go straight up to the guy. And yeah, I didn't really speak to him too much other than get out and you're banned from all my classes and nights, because I'd seen enough that something was untoward. And yeah, I take the word of followers, very much to heart when they tell me things like this.
Yeah.
And Gemma being a teacher as well, she knows what's right and wrong and what you should and shouldn't do. So yeah, so I basically banned him from my night, told him to get out there and then.
Hmm.
And then afterwards, later, I messaged, because he wasn't local to the area. I wanted to find out where he had come from and if he'd been doing this in other places. And once I put the feelers out, other people were telling me, oh yeah, he's been in London, he's been in Devon, he's been in Cheltenham, he's been in, all these different areas. So I messaged like 50 different promoters that I knew at the time. And basically, I managed to find a photo of him on Facebook and basically said, look, this is what I've done. I banned him because he's been aggressive, violent, verbally abusive, and he's not welcome at any of my nights anymore. I hope you can do something similar, or at least look out for him. And then some of these promoters started messaging me back saying, yeah, they've already banned him, and they've already seen him, and da da da. So he's been banned from various places. But what was curious was that they hadn't messaged other promoters to say they'd banned this person, and to kind of spread the word. So it I think more of that needs to happen, where you have a collective of promoters, teachers, even DJs that will communicate with each other if there's been something like that, especially as it's so severe that he was, literally violent with the girls, or very aggressive or what have you. So yeah. And after that, I didn't hear anything about him, or I don't know where he went, but he was out of the salsa scene at least.
Yeah.
And then because that was kind of made public, in terms of this has happened, and I wanted to kind of share the experience with people. other girls came forward and said, "Oh, actually, he was rough with me," and multiple girls were telling me the same story. So I was kind of like, okay, that further reinforced my decision that yeah, it was a good thing to do to send him
Oh
off.
yeah. Yeah, very much so. And it's a shame that it takes action being taken before others will go, I've had a similar experience, or thanks for getting him out of this space.
Yeah,
It's a shame. What do you think can be done to improve things so that followers, women, men, anyone who feels they've been abused, violated, made to feel uncomfortable, to help them feel empowered to say something to the organizer, or to help organizers be more
it's
visibly
yeah.
approachable?
It's all about the teacher, the organizer, the promoter, whoever it is that's the main person in charge. Because
Hmm.
it's not always a teacher. Sometimes it's a promoter. Sometimes it's a DJ.
Yeah.
But whoever that focus person is, they've got to show themselves to be approachable, and to be, to even say something in during. I mean, I talk from a teacher's point of view. So I say things in the class. So part and parcel of my dance classes is that I teach etiquette, floor etiquette, dance etiquette as part of my classes. With technique, I talk about hand positioning to make sure that the hands don't go, too low,
Yeah.
that they're at the right place, and
Mm.
so yeah, so I educate as I go along in terms of what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. When I've taught bachata before, I've spoken, because in bachata you do open hold and you do close hold, but some followers, they don't appreciate being in close hold.
Yeah.
And that's up to them. And I will say that in class, I say, leads, please be aware that if the followers don't want to be in that close hold, be aware of that. And I say to the followers, if you don't want to be in close hold, something I suggest is if the guy brings you in, you just put a hand on his shoulder like this.
Hmm.
And so as he tries to bring you in, that hand on the shoulder, and I'm saying, guys, listen to this, that hand on the shoulder is saying they don't want to be in close hold. And what do you do, guys? Straight into open hold. Keep smiling. It's their choice. And do everything in open hold.
Yeah.
And maybe once they've danced with you lots and they've got more comfortable with the scene, with the people, then maybe they say, okay, I'm happy to be in close hold. But until you have that, confirmation, you do open hold.
Yeah.
And then I say further to the girls that if the guy doesn't respect that, if they're still bringing them in closer, and it happens because the guys don't, it doesn't trigger for some reason in their head, and they keep, bringing them in, I'll say, stick a thumb in there. If they still don't understand that this is kind of not what the follower wants, I say to them, break away and walk away, and then come and tell me.
Yeah.
I say, I give you permission because I feel this is like almost that the followers need that permission to be able to go and talk to the teacher. So
Yeah.
I don't want to sound condescending, but it's kind of to say to them, look, I give you permission to break away from something you're uncomfortable in, whether it be bachata, salsa, whatever it might be, and leave the dance floor. But then once you've left the dance floor, make me aware of what happened,
What's
because then
happened?
I can address it. I
Yeah.
can talk to the guys, and if need be, ban them. If it gets to the point that they're really not understanding this etiquette, and it always goes down well. The guys normally in the class totally get it. The
Yeah.
girls, I'm
Yeah.
sure, appreciate it.
Because the leaders, when they're male, they don't want to cause distress.
No,
So
no, for
these are
sure.
these
And
are
some
these are good
some
things.
guys don't realize that, they're getting enthusiastic, they're into the move, they're thinking, what should I do next? But
And
they're
they're not
not seeing the look
listening.
on the girl's face,
Yeah.
and the kind of posture, the body language of the girl,
Yeah.
the follower that's saying, no, I don't want to be here. So
Yeah.
it's been, it's having that awareness. So yeah, it's having a teacher, promoter, whoever, DJ that is educating people in the class all the time in the different settings,
Yeah. Talking
um,
about it.
and
And
even announcing it on the mic to say, like, look, we're all here. have a friendly night, but if you feel upset, uncomfortable, come and talk to me.
Yeah, why is that a thing people are cautious to do or hesitant to do? It's like you're not admitting you have a problem if you say that at your night. Every night has these problems.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a matter of whether you
I think
accept
it's
it or
down
not.
to confidence of the teacher.
Mm,
I think it's confidence of the teacher promoter that they don't have that confidence to just be able to say that and be confident that that message will be received. Maybe they feel they'll be judged by the guys, by the leads. Maybe they'll feel like, oh, it's a bit hostile or something like that. But I think everybody gets it. The guys want the girls, in general, the guys want the girls to have a fun time,
of course they do.
enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
It's all about fun in salsa. And yeah, for 99% of the time, salsa souls, everybody has fun, everybody gets along, and it's goes swimmingly well. But it is down to the teacher, the promoter, to make themselves accessible to followers as well as leads if
As
something
well as
happens
leaders,
to
yeah,
the
this
lead.
isn't just
But
a follower issue for sure.
or
But
if the lead has a question in terms of how close should I get? Where should my position be? Where should my hand go? Then, asking those, be open enough and friendly enough to for those leads to be able to come to you and say, ask the right questions.
yeah, yeah, indeed, because it's okay to ask questions. It's good to. But equally, if the leads encounter a behavior from a follower that makes them feel uncomfortable in any way abused, to be able to say, Stellan, that lady has made me feel uncomfortable because it doesn't happen as often, but it does happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said going back to because it's stuck in my head now with the hand on the shoulder and saying to the leads, listen to this hand on the shoulder. It's not a verbal thing, but it is communication and you can hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So it's yeah, being aware of these non-verbal communications are still communications.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to the followers as well. I mean, I would say talk to the lead and say, look, I'm not comfortable. Can we do open hold? I will also tell them that to actually talk to them and say,
Mm,
look, particularly if they're not getting the hand cue, to say, can we do open hold, please? And
yeah.
um, so yeah, verbal communication with that, uh,
Sometimes, yeah, we need to escalate to verbal for sure.
yeah,
And educating everyone, not just followers, but everyone that if you don't feel uncomfortable, it's not because you're off or you're not built for salsa or bachata. It's how you feel on that day, in that moment, and it's valid.
yeah, yeah. And that's it. It's making sure that people feel valid. That what however they feel in terms of what they do or don't want to do is validated. And yeah, as you say, it can be the day that it's just not going the right way, and you just want to have a open hold, relaxed dance, and
Yeah,
that's totally fine.
of course it is. And okay, so before we started recording, you mentioned another incident that you've dealt with in the last couple of years, and it's not one that's as easy to talk about, I think. So I'm really happy that you're willing to talk about it first off, because it happens, but it feels so taboo to talk about, because it's of a more sexual nature. Would you mind giving us a little overview of what happened and how you dealt with it? Because you not normalized it. I don't would never want to normalize it, but you humanized it in this instance because you could tell it wasn't maliciously intended. Could you talk us through that?
Sure. So this is again like pre-lockdown, happened a while ago.
Okay.
One of my students came running up to me after a dance and said, like, I feel very upset that I was dancing bachata with a guy and he got an erection.
Mm,
And she was obviously distressed. And I asked her to kind of explain what had happened and that it was in close hold. And, she felt that he'd got aroused and she felt very distressed by it. And then, yeah,
of
she,
course, she felt distressed. She'd been violated in some way. Like,
yeah.
well, yes,
So
yeah,
yeah, it's not nice that had happened to her, and that yeah, the guy hadn't had the self-awareness to pull away and
yeah,
sort himself out and what have you in terms of take him out of the situation.
Yes.
So I calmed her down and kind of, got her to, speak with one of my other lady teachers, and she calmed down. And then I went to speak to the guy because, I wanted to find out from his side what had happened. And I mean, the look on his face was kind of horror in terms of that I was going over to speak to him and
Hmm.
that it had happened. So I could tell from the facial expressions that it wasn't, something that had happened to him before.
It wasn't a guy there to get off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he'd been there before dancing, so I knew that, I'd never heard anything from that chappie before, but of course that doesn't exclude anything happening
True.
just because I don't hear from him or them. So I spoke to him and said, look, I appreciate that, you got aroused, but what you need to do in that situation, if it ever happens to you again, is get into open hold.
Yeah. Get the fuck
Get into
away.
open hold. I appreciate that sometimes in the moment it can happen, to a guy, and it's very obvious when it happens to a guy. So, you've got to put the girl's well-being always, in front of your own and anything else, and just go into open hold if that happens. And better still, just say to the girl, sorry, I really need the loo. Make some excuse of
Just
whatever it
remove
might
yourself.
be. Just say, sorry, I'll be back again, or, what have you, and go to the loo and just wait for things to calm down.
Mm.
And yeah, and he was apologetic, and asked me to apologize to the girl on his behalf because he felt too crushed
Yeah.
to speak to her personally, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
And she accepted that he wasn't doing it with malintent or anything else, and
Mm.
she was happy with how I resolved it. And he was he was okay with it as well.
Yeah.
And I said maybe just have a little bit of space between you and her. Maybe don't dance for a few weeks. Give it a bit of time to just settle down, and I'm sure she'll be fine.
Yeah,
Um,
because even though there was no malintention, she is still going to feel in some way accosted. And
yeah,
just because it wasn't malintended doesn't mean that she shouldn't feel that way. She can still feel and process as she needs to.
and I've heard of this happening in other dances, particularly kizomba,
Hmm.
because that's a close dance and it stays very close through pretty much the whole dance. And this is girls telling me that this happened. And when I ask them, did you tell the teacher? They say yes, but they didn't do anything about it. They said, well, it's just kizomba or something like that, just brushed it off.
That's
Which,
heartbreaking.
yeah, it's and it's
'Cause
very frustrating to me that, yeah, you've got people like that out there.
I think that's why
So
people don't speak up as much because they don't want to be laughed off or dismissed or
yeah,
just,
yeah.
brushed aside. It's horrible.
I think things are changing now. I think with the hashtag, Me Too movement and
It was a
all
good
these
kickstart.
things, it's
Yeah.
kind of raised the awareness in men's minds as as much as women's.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think at least this is what I feel that teachers are starting to think about it a bit more and to, you know, be open to people coming to them and talking about these things. But not every teacher, again, it comes down to that kind of confidence to be able to deal with that kind of um, very taboo thing
Yeah.
because yeah, a lot of people just don't even like to talk about sex. There'll be some teachers that don't like to talk about sex, don't like that, they feel very awkward talking about it.
Yeah.
I think through my nursing background, that's definitely helped me because I've
Mm.
had to deal with abuse of, women and men, but mostly women, violence, sexual, in the hospital environment.
Yeah.
I've also worked in men's and women's prisons. So
Hmm.
working in the women's prisons, I again had first-hand account of, different things that happen to women. So yeah, I think that helps me in terms of being able to talk very openly about sex and sexual abuse, sexual
Mhm.
health, and all the rest of it. But I mean, other teachers, they don't have to, if they find it hard to talk about those things, at least listen and listen to the follower and validate what they're saying rather
Mm.
than brush them off or say, oh, like they don't want to talk about it. Just listen. And if nothing else, talk to another teacher, and
Yeah.
say, look, this happened. And you were talking about empowerment of teachers. We can empower each other to have that community of teachers, promoters, what have you,
To
to
support each other.
help each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd be more than happy to talk to other teachers. And if they have an incident that happens in their class, they're not sure how they should deal with it, they could talk to me. I think I've got more experience in Bristol than most teachers out there, and I've dealt with lots of situations in the
Mm.
past. I know I've only given you a couple of examples, but there's a lot in the
Yeah.
past, and yeah, so
This is it.
just
Yeah.
because that's the hard thing. Like I think a lot of the times promoters and teachers feel isolated if they don't have like a big team underneath them or other people that they can talk to.
Mhm.
So they feel kind of a bit isolated that way. So yeah, more of a community with teachers within Bristol, Bath, and beyond.
Well, beyond with the online world, it doesn't have to just stay
This is true.
within your locality. It can be from
All
anywhere.
over. That yeah,
Yeah.
reach out to your fellow teachers
Yeah.
because yeah, somebody will be able to give you a better suggestion
Yeah.
than
And
what
somebody
you
will have been through it
would.
before and already learned. And as you said with your teaching of dance, teachers don't know everything. Everyone's still growing all the time. So if you're stuck on something, there's somebody who's been through that who will be happy to plug that gap for you so you don't have to struggle the way they did.
This is it.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing your experience, Stellan, in dealing with difficult situations. I'm sure you've got plenty more that you've done and gone through and dealt with, and I'm sure you've got hundreds of wonderful ones that another time we can give space to. But it's important to hear about the difficult ones so that we can validate them, acknowledge them because they happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's that, yeah, it's the validation, acknowledgement, and being approachable
Mm.
as a teacher. And I'm very thankful that in my classes that yeah, people, feel that I'm very approachable and they'll come and talk to me.
This is the aim, to have a fun night where everyone enjoys themselves, and when and if negative situations occur and pleasant situations, that they can be dealt with. That's
Absolutely.
the key, just dealing with it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Stellan.
Thank you for having me.
It's
I'll
been
catch
wonderful.
you soon.
Yes, I'll see you on the dance floor. Thank you for listening to the Empowered Dancers podcast. If there's an aspect of the dancing you would like to hear about, or a particular teacher you would like to hear from, drop me a message and I will try to make it happen. Make sure you subscribe to get every episode as it comes out. Thank you so much for the comments and questions you are already sharing. I really, really appreciate it, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.